Example, if you want to have the better picture or the best picture using your camera, you have to keep it still. Otherwise the picture is going to be blurred, and you won't have, you won't love to have a look at it, because somewhere, it is not a pretty sight. Right? So that's why this is my own opinion on my own observation and my own experience, that in life stillness is most important thing, is the most important thing. It's a crucial thing which you have to have in your life. The philosopher says that when you feel nervous, when you feel anxious, it is only one thing that you can overpower, is that try to taste even a small success in your life. It could be anything, because your small success will take you up from a previous point, just like a stair from 1 to second, and that's how you can keep moving up. Like, and start one day your business will be taking off altogether. Somewhere, we all have two voices in our hearts. One is always going to, oppose whatever comes to your head. But once you start listening to that voice, that first voice especially, first voice is always correct. This is what I have observed in my life. The second voice is, that second voice always comes from your chattering mind, right? So I just listen to that voice. See, first of all, we must admit that until you realize the importance of this clarity in your life, you can really not focus on it. You can't even think of bringing these things in your life as a part of a practice. So you have to first of all be clear about it. Yes, we need to have clarity, of some kind of clarity in our life. Clarity simply means is not your focus on your goal, your focus on few things. Clarity also includes to be accepting those universal facts, the life of humans, which are going to remain as they are. Yes, they cannot be changed. They cannot be changed. For example, the inevitable fact of human's life is the death, right? But the fact also remains that we don't accept it as a fact. We only see it as a part of event, which is not going to unleash on us. The questions decide or determines the quality of education you've received, obviously, right? And the kind of experience you've had so far, right? If you reflect a lot, if you ponder over the things, and if you really do a kind of soul searching in your life, then you will always come up with the right questions. And if your questions are right, you will always have the right answers, because somewhere there is some kind of flaw in the education which we are receiving. There is some kind of flaw in the person himself or herself, because they have not taken taken it very seriously. They haven't understood the importance of soul searching and reflection and introspection, because somewhere they holds really a lot of importance. For example, if you don't talk to yourself, people may be thinking this person has gone mad because he's just talking to himself, right? Something's wrong with the person. But trust me, once you start having conversation with yourself, you get to know yourself better than you know yourself before. Because generally what we are trying to know is what kind of person he or she is, what does the person do, but we never ask what kind of potential we've got, and whatever we are doing in our life, that is that really aligned with our true nature. So welcome, Robin. And everybody wants to have some clarity on whatever they're willing to do. But there is one problem. The problem is that as you sit down to think, you will always find your thoughts being clouded by this continuous clutter, and the chaos which is going around. And then you quite struggle. Then you work really, very hard trying to get some clarity on this. So and you always find yourself tired and exhausted. You think that this is the toughest thing there is. I mean, I'm not getting that clarity. So I want know you to have some discussion about how to find clarity in this constantly changing world, and this clutter which we have got in today's life. There is a lot of chaos going, and we find it difficult to get organized. If we are not organized, our thoughts will also be disorganized. So the thing which we have to discuss is finding clarity in this chaos. And people or each and everybody wants to have this clarity, because whatever you're willing to do, whether it's business, your job, your studies, whatever it is, you need clarity and focus.
Right.
Until or unless you have the clarity, you will always be confused about making decisions.
Right.
And if you don't, or if you fail to make decisions, you will always find yourself to be struggling. So I want you to say a little about it, and then we will go into the depth, and we'll have this in-depth conversation of the same, that how people can find clarity in their lives. And the kind of clarity which I'm talking about is quite clear, that we are basically talking about the life, the desires which we have got, and the kind of goals which we have got, because ultimately we all are living, and we all have some kinds of goals in our lives. And until or unless we are quite focused on our goals, we will always be finding ourselves to be completely helpless. And if we are helpless, then we can expect nothing, nothing good happening in a life. So I want you to say a little about it, so that we can have some deep conversation on the same.
Okay, good evening to you and good evening to everyone. Whatsoever you have just said it, I can only uh, assume out of it is that we are talking about a kind of issue which is there with us is to how to overpower this over generating chaotic conditions.
Yes.
Now, there is I think, a little bit misconception around about chaos, first of all. And what's that misconception is that people really don't understand about this chaos as it is taking place. And they really don't know what exactly it is. So it's really difficult for them to even talk about the solutions, right? Let me make it very simple for all those viewers, because it's really important to have a clarification on few things. So when we talk about chaos, we are simply insinuating or indicating about this constant uh, conflicts arising right at your psychological level. One thing which is clear here is that we are talking about issues which are taking place at our psychological level. It has got nothing to do with your physicalities. First of all, this is the first point which we have to be very clear about, so that the discussions which we are going to have, it should be somewhere revolving around this, right? So chaos is all about your mental uh, process, which goes sometimes according to your wish, or sometimes against your wish. But this conflict arises when it goes against your wish.
Yeah.
Which means that you cannot control your racing of thoughts.
Yes.
And this is making your overall, thought process, as you talked about, it's getting clouded. So when you don't have a clarity on what exactly you're doing, about your future, about your career, about your objective that you want to achieve in your life, there is no specific, picture that you can portray. Yes, this is what I have to achieve. This is
Yes.
what I have to do in life. This is all but a result of when we are getting so much busy with the overcrowded of these thoughts. So the solution would be, which we will be discussing in the later part of this video, what we will have to do in this matter, we have to find out the possible reasonable solutions. And that should be only limited to tackle the problems of your psychology. Because if there is something in our hand, according to me, which is there to be controlled by us, is that things that are happening in your psychology. Because whenever you react towards any situation, it's your all control on that most of the time. Okay, for example, if we have any physical injury, we are going on the road and somewhere some truck or some any vehicle, just runs down over us, right? Or something like this, then in that case we might face some injuries. That is not in our control.
Yeah.
So the suffering is not in our control, but the suffering is just like transient, it will be faded.
Yes.
But what happens at the psychological level is something which is sometimes for more than an unreasonable time period.
Yes.
And that is what we have to shorten it, reduce it. So the thing which we have to discuss in the next part of this video is probably is about how to be more controlled when we are reacting to events, because your reactions will decide your psychological events, your psychological status.
Yeah.
The more aggressive it is, the more out of his impetus, right? It is going to be more difficult to manage. So this is what we are going to discuss and we are going to cover in the next part of this video. Yes.
And the kind of things which we are talking about is they're not from books, they're not from anywhere else, because we are talking about what we've learned, what
Yes.
we have experienced, because it's been almost more than a decade since I started teaching people, and I've come across people, I've come across their problems, the kind of anxieties and depression and the kind of challenges they are facing in their lives. And this has taught me a lot, and I've also experienced it in my life as well. And on the basis of this experience, we are going to discuss all these things, because somewhere you cannot talk about something which you have not experienced, right? So and if you've not experienced anything, then you cannot possibly talk about the real things, because somewhere, as in the previous videos when we were talking about the pain, so I talked about the person who is actually facing the pain or feeling the pain. He's the only one who knows the intensity of the pain. Other people can just feel that, but I think they cannot feel that much pain. So the person who has been through and done that, who's been there and done that, can understand it, and that's what we're going to talk about. So the first thing which we have to talk about is, tell me, how can people have the clarity on it? And I'm not talking about one particular thing. First of all, a person should be very clear about whether they're having the problem regarding the feelings, regarding the relationships. So what the problem is. So first of all, they have to sort it out. So how can this be sorted out? Because this is something which people are always confused about. They don't even know the source. I mean, where this problem is arising from. They must know that, because only then you'll be able to solve it, if you know the source or the origin of it, right? For example, when we go to the doctor, so what does the doctor do? Doctor simply asks you, what did you eat, and have you been facing the same problem over a period of time, or it just started? So he goes into the depth and tries to find out and tries to reach the root cause of the problem. And if when he finds out the root cause of the problem, he prescribes you the medicine, and that is going to treat you or give a better treatment. So in the similar fashion, when people are able to know the source of the problem, so they can easily find the solution to it. So how can people find it out that what the problem is, and how can they get the clarity on that?
Okay, yes, that's we can understand it through a relatable situations which we come across more often. So the first thing which I want to say in this is that we first of all need to come on this very particular point, giving our consensus is that we are all are socially driven animals,
Yeah.
right? And when the situation becomes more crucial, or rather becomes out of control, is that we lose our control on ourselves, and we are completely driven by the societal norms,
Yeah.
right? And this what makes people anxious more,
Yeah.
because the way people increase or try to increase their capacity, right? Because everyone has their limitation of some kinds, right? Not people are equal. So when you try to compete with other people, some people are very fast in learning, in understanding things,
Some
in
are
grasping
average,
things.
some are average,
Yes, some are
and
average
some
and
are very slow.
below averages,
Below average,
obviously.
yeah.
But the problem arises when a person who knows that he is not able to cope up with the ongoing competition, whatsoever it is, then he starts building up pressure. And how he does that? By trying to match with the ongoing potential limits of
Yes.
the large number of people.
And when he starts looking around and start comparing himself with other
Comparing,
people's
comparing is the
level
second
of,
state that comes in, that really makes people more nervous. And this is the point or the cracking point where the person starts questioning oneself. at the level of existence, right? So he starts neglecting and somewhere demeaning his own existence, as he's not able to do anything and he's good for nothing. Such kind of questions start surfacing in the mind. And this is the time period, I think, where that person becomes even more, I think, depressed and start living in despondency. So this is the first reason that why do people feel more anxious, why do people feel more nervous, and why this happens with the people is just because of they are not able to compete with the society. First, this is the first point. And the second point is that why we, I mean, behave in that way. Why do we behave in that way? This is also the question which we try to respond. Why do we behave in that way? Because look at the society right now. People are respected, those who have earned a lot of wealth, right?
Yes.
These days.
They have got status in the society.
They have got status in the society. They have, I think, numerous powers and authority,
Yeah.
especially in their part or on their disposal, so they can regulate things up, right? These are the points where people are somewhere, the way they define themselves and distinguish themselves from others, I think. So these are the crucial, points which people, if try to understand it, observe it, I think if they start working on these, we will try to talk on these particular solutions later on this video. But I think these are the few, according to me, the reasonable situations or the prime factors which leads people to face these kinds of situations in their life.
So how people can identify that what they are confused about, whether it's the feelings, the fears, or the peer pressure, or the status, whatever it is. How can they find out, and means what they're confused about?
See, it's very easy. See, I mean, these days there has been a trend of what that one has to be expert in all domains. And that the point where the problem starts, I think, emerging out. And this is the point where a person starts deviating from their own objectives, right? In order to just compete with the society. This is the major issue with most of the problem. So what we are talking about in the previous part of this discussion is that why people have these situations arising where their minds full of or the crowded with thoughts, which is not in the positions of regulating. Why? Because of people are trying too much out of their limitation, out of their ability, right? So their focus is completely deviated from the object which was really worthy enough for him. In fact, in most of the scriptures, it is often discussed elaborately that only those people are able to attain their objectives whose focus are intact on a particular thing.
One-pointed concentration.
Yes, concentration is really important, but we have numerous sources in our surroundings which are ready to deflect you, which are ready to deviate you from your own personal objectives. And this is not, I think, your problem. This is the problem of many people, right? And this is where the problem arises because we are losing control on ourselves, and therefore we are trying to experience everything that comes to us. So when you try to taste everything that comes to you, which is even not relatable in your life, or which is not at all holding any sort of paramountcy in your life, which means this is not going to give you any sort of benefits to you, then I think we not just lose or waste our precious time, but also I think lose many opportunities as well as the focus which we had built up for a long time also gets evaporated. So this I mean, if cumulatively, it negatively impacts to that point where we become restless, and obviously, when we don't get success for over the period of time, we start behaving in this way. Even why do many philosophers says that when you feel nervous, when you feel anxious, it is only one thing that you can overpower is that try to taste even a small success in your life. It could be anything because your small success will take you up from a previous point, just like a stair from one to second, and that's how you can keep moving up. Like and start one day your business will be taking off altogether. So we have to be focused on one point whatsoever. Secondly, we have to avoid all possible diversions, because until we do that, I think there is no solution, I think, according to me.
When I was I was doing my schooling, and I was about to pass my 12th. there was always one thing in my mind that I will be getting some help from other people, that will be helpful for me to advance my career, because parents actually don't know me that much, because they don't have any anything regarding my education in their mind, because they knew only one thing, that I should be focusing on government jobs. And I think that had never been my priority. So I was always distracted, because there was nobody who could understand me. And that was the only thing that kept distracting me from my goals, that kept depressing me. Right, I was depressed just because of that one thing. When I passed my 12th, and I then tried to figure it out, that what is troubling me, and I found out that there is only one thing, that I'm expecting too much from people. And the moment I realized this thing, all the problems just disappeared from my life.
Right.
Because then I got the reality. One more thing, that people are always confused regarding their career options.
Right.
Because when they pass their 10th, they're always at the crossroads, means because they have to make a choice. And if they're not at all clear about their career, means what they would be doing in their life, they would always be struggling when
Right.
it comes to making choices. And I was damn sure. I know I read somewhere that the the foolish people are always adamant, and I was one
Yeah.
of them. Right, so I was damn clear that I always loved talking about productive things. So I thought that if I do my engineering, I would be just busy doing projects and all. I would be working on different things, but I want to be able to talk to people. I wanted to. So only one thing kept striking and in my head, that was that why not go for public speaking, right? So I started developing that taste, because I loved watching cricket a lot, and I would always find that the cricketers, they always have to talk to people. And somewhere that I don't know, I never thought that I would ever become a teacher, but that kept drawing my attention towards it. And I found that this was the only thing I loved. And I never thought that how much money I would make if I become a teacher. But I just wanted to do this thing, because this was the only thing I was quite crazy about. And I got the clarity. Right, although people don't want to be teachers, but it is the career which I really enjoy a lot. So finding clarity is quite easy if we are able to listen to our inner call, the inner voice. Because somewhere we all have two voices in our hearts. One is always going to oppose
Right.
whatever comes to your head. But once you start listening to that voice, that first voice especially, first voice is always correct.
Right.
This is what I have observed in my life. The second voice is that second voice always comes from your chattering mind. Right, so I just listened to that voice, and I found that and that's why now this is the byproduct of this. Whatever we are doing, so this is the
Right. Right.
byproduct of
Obviously.
that desire of mine. So what I believe is that you don't focus on people, because everybody has got different talents, right? And what I can do, others cannot. But what others can do, what I can means I cannot do that.
Obviously.
Because I have got my own special talent, and they have got their own special talent. So we can never compare ourselves with others. We can also not compare ourselves in terms of making money, because the person will be making money as per their talent, or
Right.
as per their the amount of hard work they're putting in, right? Next thing which we have to discuss is now suppose we have just got to know about, we have got the clarity on the kind of confusions we had. Now comes the role of this thing has got a big role to play, that is stillness. Right, so once you have got the clarity, then you should also be having some stillness in your mind. I mean,
Right.
there has to be some peace in your mind. If you are your mind is not at peace, then there is also a problem, right?
Right.
So this is what you will be talking about first. The point is, tell me the power of stillness in a noisy environment.
Okay, stillness means to be able to be sticking and balancing our psychological status.
Hmm.
Scientifically I'm talking about, because all we have to do is to cease this constant chattering of minds.
Yes.
And if you do that, so you can call yourself living in a peaceful state of mind, right? Because there arises a possibility of results, right?
Yes.
Positive results, productivities, right? So this is what is the major goal. And this is not a major goal of all for everyone.
Yes.
Right? So we need to realize that stillness comes only when we are very well aware about few things of life. Among those are very important, such as, or namely, your overall understanding about your objectivity in your life. Have you ever seen or realized people who have their clarity in their mind about their life have always lived their life comparatively successful life than many people?
Yes.
Because the major problem, as we talked about earlier, is that when you have a constant influx of thoughts and you are not able to handle those, it ends up you consuming a lot of time.
Yes.
And as the time consumes, you being sincere at the same time, understanding about the reality of life and understanding about the significance of every passing moment, we become even more anxious. And thereafter, the pressure continues to build up. So one thing which comes out from this as a result is that as long as we are very much specific about a particular thing in life, it could be anything. I'm not just talking about your objectivity of your life. I'm talking in all possible aspects, covering all possible dimensions of life. And if we can do that, balance that, listen to this very carefully, because when we say balance, we are literally saying it balance because we are not talking about to be gaining expertise on managing this balance attitude of our psychology, because it's not possible with the common people like us. This is what we have to understand and admit, because now and then even people who are very expert even in controlling their thought process get, I think, deviated for any of the reasons that it happens. People sometimes get smitten by any of the things. Sometimes we get deflected from any other things because these events and circumstances are completely uncertain, unknown to us. And we cannot relegate it to the point of unknowable. Why? Because these are very, I think, a hidden truth of our life, which we are not aware of it, right? So if we can manage all these things, considering it as a part of our life, but continue to focus on how to balance at the same time, I think this is where we can at least try to balance our status. And once we do that, this balance of psychological part of, I think we can at least enjoy the life in every moment, right?
Yes. Yes.
Frustration arises from what? It arises,
Overdoing.
yes, overdoing, and it arises
Overthinking.
from overthinking, and it arises from that particular moment when you realize that you are not able to live your life.
Yes.
So when you're not able to live your life, exactly, you are able to conclude that, right? Many people don't even know this. They keep getting themselves frustrated entire life. Even they don't even ask themselves a question, why it is happening to them. But those people who are aware enough about themselves, about the surroundings,
Life
about
becomes
how they receive
monotonous.
people.
Life becomes monotonous.
Yes,
And they say that this has now become a kind of work which I don't really want to do, but I'm having to do.
right. And one more thing, see, philosophies may play a very crucial role in really building up these kinds of understanding on people or about all these instances and circumstances of life which are completely uncertain. Because this is what is the biggest fear of most of the people, because they are not ready to face something which is uncertain. Because the fear lies in the uncertain. What
Yes.
is known to us can never, fear us a lot than something which is unknowable to us. So therefore, these philosophies always very important and may play a very crucial role in your life. How? Because they tell you every single moment that when you go, I think, out of your calculated, path that you have desired for years, and you have been following it for several, but all of a sudden you fail to do that. These philosophy says, and these philosophers says that you have to learn to admit things first of all. Secondly, you have to learn to unlearn those learned things. Because if you continue to go with the same learning for your entire life, where society doesn't even consider as a part of this societal elements, because what we have been facing previously cannot be important right now.
Yeah.
There is a famous proverb called beware of a man of one book. So it simply means what? You should not be getting familiar with those people who are being surrounded by only one process, one thought process, right?
Yes.
So this is how we can relate, I mean, these things with us, and can exercise it, and can practice it, and understand and develop the positivity in our life, and can somewhere sideline all these negativities at the same time.
And if you want to develop or strengthen your focus, then stillness is indispensable.
Obviously.
For example, just let's take the example, you might have seen the lens, which is used to burn. Suppose now you're burning the
Obviously, yes.
matchstick.
Yeah.
And if you don't
This is
keep it
about
still,
concentration.
if you don't keep it still, and if you're taking it away from the burning point, even for a fraction of a second, it won't, then the matchstick won't burn,
Obviously.
right? So stillness is really important.
Absolutely.
To absorb the things, to reflect, right? Because what I believe is, in my life, reflection has become an indispensable part of my life. Suppose, suppose we all are doing the things all day, we all are working, right? And at night, what we do, just we watch TV, we have, our food, and then we retire to, bed, and we don't do any this reflection. I think once you start reflecting on your life, on the things you are doing, you will get more clarity, right? Because then you'll know that why am I doing this, and what am I doing this for. And once you get the clarity, then nothing disturbs your
Right.
this composer, right? So stillness is really very much important. For example, if you want to have the better picture or the best picture using your camera, you have to keep it still. Otherwise, the picture is going to be blurred, and you won't love to have a look at it, because somewhere, it is not a pretty sight, right?
Right.
So that's why this is my own opinion, on my own observation and my own experience, that in life, stillness is most important thing, is the most important thing. It's a crucial
Right.
thing which you have to have in your life. The next thing which
But one more thing I want to add to this, just for the viewers.
Hmm.
If you are being a little bit confused about the stillness, then you can relate it with a few things. And these are not definitions, but if you read scriptures or try to understand psychologist, you will try to relate it, or you may relate it with all these stillness. Stillness simply means, I mean, equanimity of your mind.
Yeah.
It is equanimity of your life.
Bringing equipoise.
Equipoise, which means it is not all about that you are not acting. It is all about that you are not responding to things as mostly people do. Or in other words, you can say that you are trying to be indifferent to both aspects of life. So when I say both aspects of life, I'm talking and incorporating only two things. One is success and failure.
And positive and negative.
This means that you are not even accepting, you are actually accepting the way it is. So the simple definition of stillness is not about moving or not moving. It is about to accept the thing the way it is, as it is. Elaborated in the language of Gautam Buddha, means accept the reality the way it is, without forcing and expecting your personal will on it. And when you learn this, you find that your suffering, irrespective of degree it holds, it starts reducing and alleviating over the time. So this is what stillness is all about.
Yes. And then comes the decluttering of our head, because our mind is cluttered with the unnecessary things.
Obviously.
The things which we have never thought we would have, but they just creep in our head, and we don't even know when they crept in our
Right.
head. So there comes the rule of decluttering
Right.
your head. So the question which I'm asking you, people generally find it difficult to declutter their head, because so far they have been in the habit of cluttering up their heads, and they find it difficult to decide what they have to ignore and what they have to accept.
Right.
So in this case, how people can have the clarity on how they can declutter their heads, because somewhere when your brain is full,
Right.
your mind is full, nothing will enter.
Right.
And even though somebody is saying you something important, you will not be listening to the person, because your brain is already full with the negative things, and you are not letting the positive in. So in this case, how can people declutter their heads?
Okay, let me extend my part, which I have just spoken in the first part of this video, to understand this cluttering part, right? So, since we are using this word cluttering, and now we are more willing to declutter it, because we are not ready with this kind of mindset where our mind is full of or crowded with thoughts. Because when we have this overwhelming thoughts, so ultimately we fail to organize those in a very sequenced order, right?
Yeah.
And therefore we cannot expect good result to be produced, right? So cluttering simply means is that when you have your, I mean, destination to reach, your objective that you have already picked up in your life, and you start revolving around that, but at the same time you start gathering unnecessary details, unnecessary data, which has got nothing to do with your life or even your objective in persuasion. And if you do that, you actually make yourself more confused, more overwhelmed. Why do we get frustrated even when we try hard? It is just because of we have given enough time and still we are not getting results. But we don't realize it, that why we are not getting results is just because of we have made things so much confusing,
So much complicated.
so much conundrum kind of things which is taking place, which you are not able to get yourself out of it. So there are few things which you have to weed it out. And these things are that, first of all, try to analyze. See, awareness is the only key, first of all, let me
Yes,
say, before I
yes.
go further,
We
because
have to be aware of the things that are happening in our life, and
obviously,
that we are allowing them to happen.
obviously, because there are things which you really want to enjoy in your life, which you really want to perceive, to obtain in your life. So you must be very much concentrated on that. And what comes apart from it is a part of your, I think, decluttering, or is a part of unwarranted elements.
Yeah, unwarranted, yes.
Obviously, because this has got nothing to do with your life development or personality development.
Yes.
So one thing we might have experienced a lot in these days, especially in this growing, I mean, cultural practices of the society, is that we get, mesmerized or fascinated by people whom we just see through TV or maybe through discussions.
Yes.
And we try to imitate them. What we do in this process is that we have been so much engrossed in building up ourselves, something which is not the real us, right?
And
That we are moving away from the
yes,
originality.
we take them for the perfected one.
Let me give a one share this one relatable example. Many people come and say, you might have come across this with your students too. Many people have given a lot of time in building up their communications, but they don't find themselves to even reaching to the first level.
Yeah.
Why? Just because of they have tried their entire life imitating others,
Yeah.
their pronunciation, their accent. So what they are doing is that they are putting a lot of efforts on becoming something which they are not, rather than accepting the way they are.
Yes.
And then try to shape them.
Yes.
This is the major problem with most of the people, right? So this is what I think we very well aware about it. And if we aware about it, we can really declutter all this. So declutter simply means to just weed out, to clear out all the cache data, which is not relevant at all. And trust me, it's just a part of practice. You may not be able to do it with all perfection right in your first move. But I promise you, if you do that and make it a part of your habit, tomorrow you will be able to do even the 50% of it, and then you will find you will be very much okay and feeling healthier from inside.
And what I believe is that for all this to happen, you have to take the charge. You have to
Obviously.
become honest and responsible in your life. Because if you think that just because someone is telling you something and you're gonna be perfect, or you're gonna be on the right track, I think this is not going to happen. You have to start implementing those things, and for implementing those things, you have to have some amount of discipline in your life, some amount of responsibility in your life. Until or unless you're responsible, you cannot see some positive changes in yourself. So because somewhere you might have heard many people say that don't change for anybody. So this has been taken, whether otherwise people have misunderstood it. Even though they're wrong, they say that I'm not going to change for
No,
anybody,
that is
right? So this is the worst thing, and this is the, I think, negative aspect of this particular phrase. And you have to ready to change. You have to be flexible. One, a few lines were there, which I read in a book that you might have seen the grass blades. So no matter how strong the winds are, they don't fall to the
Obviously,
ground because
obviously.
they are very small, and they
Yeah.
can easily
Bend and
yeah. But if you see the tall trees, they come down because they are not at all actually flexible.
Right.
They are not at all
They are stood
ready.
upright,
Yeah,
and
they are
they're
either,
not able
they
to
are
bend.
upright. So
Right.
this is what I'm saying. So you have to be a bit flexible, and you should try to ponder over the things, because what somebody has said can have two meanings. Because it is all up to our mindset, what kind of mindset we've got. If you've got positive mindset, you'll always be taking the positive out of it. But if you're negative, or you're a negative thinker, you will always be looking at the
Right.
negative side of the things. So this is very much important. The next thing comes that you know now you've got the clarity. You've got this particular thing that we must know how to declutter our minds. Then comes one more thing, that is we have to make the clarity a kind of ritual in our life, right? As we see that rituals are done on daily basis. In the similar fashion, we have to work a lot on bringing clarity in our life on daily basis. Because once we think that I've just worked a lot on it on for one particular day, then I will be leaving it for quite some days, and then I will be resuming it some other day. So I think you will remain the way you are, because there is no going to change. There is not going to change. Not going to be any change there, because you have the same kind of mentality even today, in spite of having been told, in spite of reading a lot, but you haven't actually implemented anything, and you haven't become regular and consistent with that, right? So now the thing I'm talking about is, tell me, how can people make clarity a ritual in their life, so that their life is going to change for good?
Uh, I think this is very natural with those who are really serious about their life. I will not include that section of people who haven't taken themselves seriously. When I say seriously, it doesn't mean that you have
They're
taken
supposed to be
yourself.
found in the hospital.
Yes, yes, I'm not talking about it.
Sincerity.
I'm not talking about it. Even if you take yourself seriously in that matter, that you really hold importance and significance in your life, and for many people, I think these are just words, and really, don't hold any much of any reality. I think that's what I believe. Why it is important, the question you asked, is just because of, see, these days, I think people are more focused on making life more healthy, more peaceful, more smooth going, right? And if there is one of the things which really can help us to experience that particular life, which is a dream life, is this is that our clarity is with us for 24 hours.
Yeah.
And if we are encouraged enough with this very idea, then I think we can really, process it in our life on the daily basis. See, first of all, we must admit that until you realize the importance of this clarity in your life, you can really not focus on it. You can't even think of bringing these things in your life as a part of a practice. So you have to first of all be clear about it. Yes, we need to have clarity, of some kind of clarity in our life. Clarity simply means is not your focus on your goal, your focus on few things. Clarity also includes to be accepting those universal facts
Hmm.
the life of humans,
Which are going to remain as they are.
yes,
They cannot be changed.
they cannot be changed. For example, the inevitable fact of humans' life is the death, right? But the fact also remains that we don't accept it as a fact.
Hmm.
We only see it as a part of event,
Hmm.
which is not going to unleash on us
Mhm.
at any point of time in future or
There is
near.
one also fact that we cannot always win in our life.
We cannot always win.
Right, but there will be some losses. There will be some you can say you can incur some losses in your life. You can get injured as well. You cannot remain healthy all the time. You will be falling ill some days, right?
Absolutely. So now you can make or enumerate a complete list of all those points, giving dots. First, you can say that yes, we need to be clear about few inevitable facts of life. And one of those we have discussed about it. Secondly, there is not as such urgency to be sticking to a one particular objective in your life, because when you stick to your one particular point in your life, being adamant all the time, you are just because of this particular thing, otherwise your existence is not possible. I mean, such kind of approach in life makes life hell.
Yeah.
More than more heaven. I
Yeah.
mean, makes hell, trust me.
Yeah.
So this is the reality which we have to absorb, that even you are focused on your work, you must not take it that much seriously, because it is just a part of life. It is one of those many events which really doesn't hold much importance,
Because
but
it is not the end of the world.
it is not end of the world, right? In fact, the entire scripture is based on how to reduce our attachment on things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say that you have to stop working.
Yeah.
Working will always be part of your
Because
life.
this is known as the karmic field.
Karmic field.
Yeah.
We are being sitting here on this chair,
and we are talking in the show. This is also karma.
This is also karma.
Yeah.
When these, for example, our blinking eyes, this constant contracting lungs and expansion of lungs are inevitable actions
Yes.
taking place. It is reflecting this inevitability of actions which is there with us.
Yes.
So that has to be translated in the same way in our life, that action must be there irrespective of the result it gets or in return whatsoever it is. So the third thing which we can relate it with is that whatsoever result comes to us, we are not going to be bothered about it, because this concern really pisses us a lot, and then it really makes life more uncomfortable, makes us feel that it's all disruptive. And once it, I mean, be on this particular trade, I think this becomes really difficult to manage and get the life back on the track.
And deep down, you know it pretty well that you put in efforts and you were really very serious. You were sincere. You worked really very sincerely. And if you meet some negative, outcomes in your life, so this should not be bothering you, because you know yourself that you did whatever you could.
Obviously.
And then rest has become secondary. Rest becomes secondary, because it is all about your mind chattering. If your mind is positive, you will always think of the positive things. If your mind is negative, you will always be focusing on the negative things.
Right.
So you have to mold your thinking in such a way that whatever happens in a life, you are not going to give a knee-jerk reaction to it, because somewhere it is going to bring some kind of sorrow in your life, right? Knee-jerk reaction is always going to bring some sorrow, some kind of negative things in your life,
Right.
because there we always responds on the basis of the kind of emotions we have.
Right.
And emotions are fickle.
Right.
Right.
Obviously.
Emotions are not going to be there forever. They're very temporary. They're short-lived. Right. For example, what happens when two people start arguing? The other person starts abusing the other person, then will start we can say hitting the person with the hands and fists. This happens because they are listening to their emotions. But if they hold on for quite some time, they stop saying something to the person, chances are the other person will also stop saying, because he will be tired of saying these things over and over again, and the person will start wondering why this person is not reacting. Things what makes the matters worse is your reaction.
Obviously.
Right? So we should always be thinking over the things before reacting, and this can give us more clarity,
because reaction is the only event that is in our control.
Yeah.
So there is a famous saying that there are two arrows flying to us. One that causes us physical suffering, and the other is psychological suffering.
Mental
Physical suffering is not in our control. You are moving on the road or you get injured through an accident.
Yes,
It is not
can
in
be
our
somebody
control.
else's mistake.
Yes, it can be. Obviously, it happens most of the time.
Most of the times this
But
happens.
what is in your control is your psychological reaction to that.
Yes.
So that is in our control, and that's what Gautam Buddha says. In fact, you talked about how you have to be more calculated in your reactions. So this is a very short story about Dr. Gautam Buddha. One fellow, or he was just a man who was just like crossing a path, and where he met Gautam Buddha, and for no reason he started abusing Gautam Buddha, and he kept doing it for almost 2 or 3 minutes. And thereafter, when he found Gautam Buddha being so neutral and maintaining and balancing his equipoise, then he got really surprised because someone is abusing and the other is not. I mean, getting no.
Yes.
I mean,
Is not getting disturbed.
Obviously. Then he says, and when this man abuses, is over, then Gautam Buddha says thereafter, I'm not ready. I'm not willing to accept your gift. Please keep.
Give it to yourself.
Obviously. Then he said this few words and how he reacted. I mean, there was not a single word that, I mean, affect Gautam Buddha. I mean, in the way, I mean, many people make themselves unnecessarily, right? Let them in the same way. So I think this is what is the teachings that we get from these famous and known people.
One more thing that once you've got the clarity and once you've got this decluttering, how to declutter, and once you've also got this that how to make clarity a ritual in your life, right? It means this clarity should be considered as the muscle, right? It can be given the shape.
Right.
So if you keep doing it on the regular basis, you can make it a part of your life.
Obviously.
The other thing is, I'm gonna ask you is, when people question, then people get the answers. So this is the only art which we have to learn which you have to learn and practice in our life. But it is not limited to asking questions. It is about asking the right questions. Once you start asking the right questions of yourself, of other people, you then get the right questions, right answer, sorry. And this is something how people can change their lives. So before I say a little about it, I want to say, how can people learn to ask the right questions? This is a very big thing, because people are always asking questions, but not all those questions are going to be good ones.
It is an unfortunate thing is that first of all, our base of bringing about questions which really hold true potential, I think, according to me, seems to be very bleak. Because the kind of environment we are receiving from the second hand is itself having a different code of conduct, a different life process, and therefore they have a different norms of life, right? And accordingly we are defining and trying to raise questions, right? So as long as asking question is a concern here, I think we have to be very clear about few basic things in life, about some realities of life. Otherwise, we really cannot raise some valid questions. Otherwise, you ask or you see around yourself what kind of questions we are raising so constantly. For example, these days we are more busy in knowing the process. How can we become rich in a short span of time? Now, many people can come and say this question holds true potential in this particular time period. But does it really hold that potential? Is it really so important? I mean, if it is, then I think you have already set up your own criteria, your own ambit, and you are not ready to go beyond that, right? So, first of all, the thing is that since you asked me this question, what kind of questions we must ask? It depends solely on the kind of environment you are receiving. Secondly, how much aware you are of the reality, because we are not. I think it's not right to understand and accept us as just a body. It means we are not just limited to the materialism around us. There are metaphysics, there are spirituality around us, which we also have to incorporate in our discussions. And when we combinedly discuss about it, try to know about it, then I think supposedly we can really raise a valid question because there you are trying to cover a wide spectrum of life, including your materialism, psychology, your spiritualism, and thereafter you may expect a person to be asking a good, important, or some significant questions of life. Because as long as what we see right now, all these questions are somewhere related or revolving around materialism, right? This may be good for many people, but this may not be. But these questions really do hold that much potential, is the question that you have to ask.
And your questions decide or determines the quality of education you've received,
Obviously.
right? And the kind of experience you've had so far, right? If you reflect a lot, if you ponder over the things, and if you really do a kind of soul searching in your life, then you will always come up with the right questions. And if your questions are right, you will always have the right answers, because somewhere there is some kind of flaw in the education which we are receiving. There is some kind of flaw in the person himself or herself, because they have not taken it very seriously. They haven't understood the importance of soul searching and reflection and introspection, because somewhere they holds really a lot of importance. For example, if you don't talk to yourself, people may be thinking this person has gone mad because he's just talking to himself, right? Something's wrong with the person. But trust me, once you start having conversation with yourself, you get to know yourself better than you know you yourself before. Because generally what we are trying to know is what kind of person he or she is, what does the person do, but we never ask what kind of potential we've got, and whatever we are doing in our life, that is that really aligned with our true nature. So once we try to know these questions, or try to seek the answers to these kind of questions in our life, we will certainly be able to ask right questions and get the right answers. Because it is said in Zen philosophy that once you start becoming a student, your teacher will also arrive. I mean, if you are ready to study, or if you are ready to know, you will find a teacher there, right? So if you have got the right questions, then there will be somebody who's gonna answer you the right answers, right? So this is very much important, and this is how people can find some kind of solace, and they will be able to find the clarity in this chaotic world and chaotic lifestyle which we have adopted, and we have made it right. Otherwise life is just life. It is no more chaotic, and it is no more complicated. It is us who have made it very complicated and very chaotic, just because of the kind of questions we are asking, the kind of things we are doing. Otherwise, see, just look around, you'll find many people, they're happy just by having nothing, and they are more clear just by not being too much qualified, right? Because qualification cannot decide how clear you are. What will decide is how much experience and wisdom you have developed in your life, and this is going to give you more clarity, and you will then not be getting disturbed so much. You may have read a lot about Arjuna, why he was able to hit the bullseye. I mean, that is why how he was able to aim at the bird's eye, because he was just focused, and he had the clarity that he had to hit the bird's eye. And if there were distractions, and if he was distracted by those distractions, I think he would not be able to hit that bird's eye. Because somewhere he had one thing in his mind, that if he lets himself getting distracted, then he would not be able to shoot that bird's eye. And that's why he was known. Then later he came to be known as the greatest archer of the world, right?
Even yes, even if our viewers have even a little confusion on this very part, so let me just simplify the last point in a more simplified version. Next time when we are going to ask a question, things that you have to keep in your consideration is that you should not ask a question to denigrate
Yeah, this
particular person or particular
sometimes we just want to
yes,
put other persons down,
yes,
and we want to make them feel
yeah,
feel small,
yes,
and that's why
don't belittle.
yeah.
I mean, if I give you this example, these days we read scriptures of other religion. Major purpose for reading these scriptures among many youth is to find faults.
Yes.
So we are becoming more
Fault
fault finders,
Yeah.
right? And this is what putting us on a regressive path.
Hmm.
So first, which is a most important thing, is that when you ask a question, don't think that you are going to belittle person. Rather, you should be very positive in your intent as to what you are going to learn from it and what is there for you, which you can apply to your real life, so that you could nurture, you can develop well. If you approach in this way while asking the question, I say, even if you ask even irrelevant question, there must be something for you to learn from it. So make it simple and make it applicable. But let please just promise yourself you are not going to be denigrating other, defiling other for any of the reasons while asking your questions. As is what happens with most of the students when a teacher comes in the class and the student starts
they read some facts which are not at all relevant.
Obviously.
They start asking these questions of the teachers and thinking
In
that
order
they
to
would
pull down.
they are always trying to pull their legs.
Yes.
And one more thing, before I wrap it up, I would share something with you, that these days, what's happening, that people have got more, much more scientific temperament, and they've got, scientific, they have become very logical, they've become very scientific. So they're always asking the kind of questions which are not at all relevant, especially of the spiritual gurus, so that they can somewhere make them feel bad, make them feel small of them, about themselves. So this should not be the way, we are just talking about the right questions. Before we ask question, we must be trying to know whether the question is relevant or holds some kind of sense
a
in it.
potential, right?
Otherwise, it will be just considered as a kind of insult.
Right.
People are trying to insult the other person. So with this, I think people who are listening to us, if they try to incorporate the kind of points which we have discussed in the episode, they will be getting so much clarity in their life. This is not just because we have read it somewhere. This is something which we have experienced ourselves. And to be honest, whatever I've discussed in the episode, this is my own experience and my own observation. And if a person who was quite depressed, and the person who was quite hopeless and disappointed in his life, and can become positive and very optimistic.
Right.
I think this can also benefit the people who are going to practice these things in their lives. But there was one condition, that they should be practicing it very honestly, right? They should not be practicing because they just want to see whether the person is telling the truth or not, right? So they have to be very much honest with themselves, and they will definitely be seeing some positive results in their life. So with this, I'm wrapping this show up, and I will be seeing you in the next episode.
Yeah, bye.
Take care.